guys? Welcome back to the Zone, friends. Today we're joined here by a special guest, Tez. It's long overdue. What's up, bro? And then we got the
What up?
usual
What up?
thing. I just wanted to talk to you guys about, do you guys think there's such thing as an N-word pass? Have you ever heard of it before?
Me personally, yeah, I've definitely heard of it, especially living in our mass, shit like that. So it's like it's kind of everywhere. Shit, I'll be real. When I was younger, you know what I'm saying, I thought it was cool. I think I gave out a couple. You know what I'm saying. I'm not gonna lie.
Because you was cool with them white folks. So you was like, you know
Yeah,
what?
you know what I'm saying. Like we cool, especially you know what I'm saying. If we grew up in the same neighborhood, it was just I don't know, man. It's one of them things. But as I got older, kind of opened my eyes. You know what I'm saying.
Let's go on.
It's that knowledge of self that comes around. You sort of start to realize the vehicle you're in as a black man in this country, and race relations. And for me, I've only heard of the N-word pass online. Like that's never been some shit that's existed in real time because coming up in Birmingham, I didn't have a white classmate really until like middle school.
Damn.
And even then, I didn't have classes with him, but it was just a kid I saw. And, for the most part, it's always been a respect thing where even if, people want this sense of relatability where it's like, hey, it's just the word, I can say it, you can say it. And by you saying it, it kind of, alleviates any sort of
Tension.
kind of prejudice you have. Yeah, really tension and prejudice you have leading up into that, into interaction with them. And, in my experiences, the white people that I've known and I've, come to call friends, they've never even wanted to say it. It's never came up. It's just a level of respect. They didn't, it's not imperative that they say it. It doesn't do much for our friendship and dynamic. It's just, I feel like it's a respect thing as to why they don't say it. And I also feel like it's a respect thing as to, the leeway people give to, whites and other ethnic groups for saying the N-word. But I feel like that's something. I'll let everyone else speak before I get into part two of what I feel about the situation, in case anyone else has anything else to add to it.
Now, for me personally, growing up, I always heard it from different ethnic groups that weren't black. So, like, I'd hear from Asians, I'd hear from Hispanics and stuff. And then I never really had a problem hearing it from anybody that wasn't white. But then, like, I got to college, and then, like, I'd hear people straight from, like, Vietnam. They're saying it, and they're like, they just got here. And I'm like, you don't even know the real history of that word, and you're saying it. And then that's when it hit me, like, you shouldn't be saying it unless people could associate you as being black. Like, I have a friend, he's from Bangladesh. He says the N-word. I have no issue with him saying it because to me, he is black. Like, he looks black. He's considered black. They treat him like he's black. Therefore, I have no problem with him saying it.
Mm.
But then I see other Asians, because in the social ladder, they're second to white people, you know what I'm saying? And they're not considered black. They don't really have the same plight as a normal immigrant or other minorities. So I don't think they should be saying it too because of the hierarchy. I just think it depends on the hierarchy and the situation, the relationship you have to the demographics and stuff.
That's a fair assessment.
For sure.
Kane?
I mean, for me, like, as I've gotten older, I don't know, like, I hear it out in the public and just the general diaspora, and that shit's just weird to me.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't feel right. Like, when I was younger, I was like, I'm brown, you're brown, cool, it's whatever.
Right.
But, like, as I got older, man, like, it just feels weird hearing, like, Hispanic, Asian, like, you know what I'm saying, like, Middle Eastern cats, like,
right.
It's just weird hearing them say, like, my nigga. I'm like, what? Like,
so,
nah.
I wanna inject. I don't like people, specifically black people. I don't like when we, as a people, say, "Oh, if you don't like it, don't say it at all," or because I feel like that's a cop out. It's a cop out, and you say that because you really, it's fence sitting. You say that because you kind of want to play a neutral part to it rather than, standing for, but I can also see how people would, feel like it's not a big deal because, like I say, the experiences as black people in America are so different from state to state, city to city, I can't really view I can't view it through the lens of someone else, and I sure as hell I can't view it through the lens of like white supremacy, because I feel like to say we can't say it and we've had it put in our face for 400 years. It's ridiculous that you would even say like that's how we kind of put an end to everybody using it because it makes you uncomfortable. We just don't use it.
Right.
I don't mean to ramble, but it's something
definitely
that
okay.
Yeah. Somebody else take it. I might need a sip of water or something.
All
Nah,
right.
you good.
So what you're saying, I'm trying to understand. So what you're trying to say is you don't like when black people say, "Oh, we shouldn't be saying it at all either."
No, I don't, because here's the thing. When, like I say, me being born in Alabama, I am
Right.
the result of niggas that stayed after, that's just me. That's my culture.
Right.
And I feel like, as freed slaves in this country, we had nothing, absolutely nothing leaving the plantation except the language that, we were taught and the alterations that we made to it. The the semantics we gave each individual word at the time. Interesting little fact. My grandma used to call bad handwriting. She called it chicken scratch, and she called it chicken scratch because back in the day, back in the days of slavery, the slaves would, as they taught themselves how to read and write,
Right.
but they had a system of communicating with each other where they could read this text, but the overseer couldn't read it, the master couldn't read it. It was something that was only decipherable to them, and it got the name chicken scratch because it looked like chicken scratch. So just throwing it out there. But I feel like our ability to be malleable in this country and turn lemons into lemonade. Nigga is all lemon into lemonade. Like, I feel like at some point when it was brought up, I don't know who the first person to try to turn it into a term of endearment was, because the first I ever heard of it was interviews of NWA back in
Right.
like the 1980s.
Exactly.
But when I heard people would turn it into like a term of endearment where it's like, okay, well, this is my nigga, as in like term of endearment. That should have just been well enough. Like, I feel like, okay, there's no other ethnic group, at least to my knowledge, where but I know for a fact like Mexicans ain't calling each other spics and shit. Like,
No, they're calling each other
it's
nigga.
like black. Exactly. So it's like
Yeah, which is
black
crazy.
people.
Yeah.
We're the only people who have had a slur that's been used against us, used to harm us. And for us to sort of try to change the power dynamic of that, it was admirable. But I guess it's the same. It's the same kind of energy where it's like, the swastika didn't always mean what the fuck it meant. It was taken from somewhere else. But because of, the ugliness associated with the swastika, it completely sweeps the previous meaning under the rug.
Right. Damn.
And perhaps that works the same way for the N-word. Like, maybe it was never something we should have tried to reclaim, because at the end of the day, you can't control semantics, you can't control language, and you also can't force people to see things your way. But at the same time, I feel like what's the need, what's the necessity, why and what for? Because I've had relationships with white people and with non-black people of color, and for me personally, it was never an issue that they pressed. Maybe it's just kind of like the presence I give off, but we've managed to have meaningful relationships without that being something we feel like we should share.
Yeah.
But it varies all over. I feel like it's really it's messy, but there's plenty of more shit to be upset about outside of whites and non-black people of color using the word. But I do have to ask the question, with everything considered, why would you want to? Like, if I was to tell you that nigga was something that, people would hear at night, and they would hear screams to accompany that slur. And these were the screams of innocent black men or women, being harmed for the color of their skin. And, that word kind of came with it. So, with the knowledge of that, why is that something that you want to use as, a white person or as a non-black person of color? It's just like,
Right.
it's easy to not care, but like at the same time, like, be cautious.
Do you know what I think it is for like why they want to use it? I think it goes back to just reappropriating black culture. You know what I'm saying? Black people are always the trendsetters. We always make things cool.
Yep.
You want to fit in.
Yep. I hear that.
You want to fit in. So therefore, it's like if everybody else is saying it, I want to say it. They're playing basketball. It's cool. I want to do it. And I'm not saying this is all people, but it's just like you don't want to be the one that's left out. You know what I'm saying? You want to go with the trend. People are dick riders, and that's just the way it's always been.
Thanks.
Mm.
This is wild. This is just wild in general. Like,
but I think a big part of it is I think it's a tough pill for white people to swallow because it's the first time they've I don't think they're really told what they can and can't do in terms of like what they can say and who they can say it to.
Right.
Because as it's pure American arrogance, plain and simple. Where it's like, hey, they have this thing. I want it to because I'm forced to deal with them.
In First Amendment.
So because I'm forced to interact with these people, I feel like I should be entitled to speak like they do. And maybe it's that, but excuse me. It's not so on the nose and it's not so black and white, but I do feel, white people's desire to say it does come largely from that massive sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't say? This is my country, goddammit.
I was here first.
When it's definitely not your country, which is a whole lot of bullshit.
That's just that's the craziest thing to me.
Yeah, it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing. But staying on topic,
that's a 5-hour seminar in itself.
What the hell? Like, white people are incredible. It's just they have
at
this.
At the very least,
they have this audacity that kind of comes with their birth, which I feel like is more than a privilege. It's really just a statement within their own aura, and saying that they can claim whatever they want. Therefore, they might as well anyways. Like, yeah, like I said, a couple of, I'm saying, you're cool with white people, like how I've been, at least in a couple of years when I was younger, like 10, 11, 12. You're okay with it just because, like, you're a kid. You don't really see
the significance.
Racism, right? You don't see the significance in like, the term. You don't see the real history behind it. And, damn all schools, wherever you are for the most part, because they're not going to teach you the real history. So you're kind of conditioned to just be okay with it in the first place. But then you get older, you start to meet other people, or at least more people that are like yourself, who have experienced different things, and you're just like, wait, so this isn't how it goes over there? And it's just like, nah, man. Nah, it doesn't at all. Matter of fact, that shit's fucked up. And you're just sitting there like, yeah, that is. And you start looking at everything,
thinking about
a brand new set of eyes, man. And it's really wild like
that. Well, for me personally, coming up in the South, I was never not aware of the world around me. I was never, lulled into a false sense of security where I believed in, good, wholesome white people, because, I can remember my first trip to the park was in Pleasant Grove. And I think for the most part, Pleasant Grove is now both equal parts black and white, but back in the day, Pleasant Grove was all white. And we went to the park, and I can remember going to the park and seeing, little white children for the first time, like. And I also remember, how their mothers would kind of scatter to pick them up and take them, throw them into the van and peel off and go home. they didn't want their children to be around us, and we came to the park, and it was enough, for them to pack the shit and go home. And so, that was the first time I was made aware that, people are gonna look at me different for reasons beyond my control. And I just kind of always maneuvered that way because I had to. Like, I don't know what people think when they hear. I've been blessed to come up in Birmingham, which is the more progressive part of an overall kind of like shit kicking state of
Right.
like of Hicks and shit. But placement, been blessed for that. But um, I will say, like, for us here, it's like a series of microaggressions, and it's also very subtle. Like, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've had to correct white cashiers for calling me boy. You know,
They say buddy out
this is
here.
like when I'm and this is like when I'm 14. This is when I'm 14. So it's like I gotta check grown men, for calling me boy. It's like, I got a name. I might not be a man just yet, but I got a name, and it ain't boy.
Right.
But I feel like this N-word pass shit, it kind of comes to be, when you've come up in an environment where it's like racism is treated like it's no big deal. But as far as us down here, it's like, you know, you just got to move different. And as far as, hey, you can say this, is like we would kind of egg on the white kids. There weren't a lot. Like, shit, I'd say one classmate at Green Acres, that was 2008, 7-ish. Then I had another one, 2010, and he was like probably the only white boy at Bessemer City. So, like, we never put him in a position where it was like, oh, it's a white boy. We trying to bring him in and have our own little pet wigger and shit.
Right.
Like, for us, it was never like, if you say this, we'll relate to you more. And I feel like, for the most part, the white people and non-black people of color that I've met, it's like, I'm not going to be any closer to you by using it or not, and I feel like that's how it should be. Like, we can communicate with each other, we can speak to each other without the N-word ever having to come up. And, I feel like that's what they fail to realize. It's not that you can't say it. You can say whatever the fuck you want, but just think about why you're saying it. Think about why you're saying it and how people feel about you saying it before you say it.
It's not even about you. It's about those around you.
Yeah, and it's not even asking a lot, but it goes back into the whole white entitlement thing. So it's like,
Speaking of that white entitlement thing, I wanted to bring up something that happened to me last year when I was a senior in college. So I'm in a sociology class, and I'm like obviously the only black guy in my class, as I've been throughout all of college. And my teacher wanted to do like roll call, and she starts asking students to raise their hands and say who they are and what they want to do. And then she's a white Jewish lady. And she knows who I am too, but I didn't raise my hand. So she made an observation at the end of the class, and she says, guys, from what I've taken, I've noticed that the only people that were answering questions and were willingly raising their hand were the 3 white men in the class. And do you know what that tells me? That's because they are born with the privilege, because they know they deserve to be here. And then she looks at me, she's like, Janias, I know who you are. You are a black, intelligent man. You know you deserve to be here, but yet you don't feel quite entitled to speak your mind like they do. And then when she said that, it kind of hit me like, yeah, like white people do, they know their space. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like us black people and other minorities, we don't see us, like we see it as a privilege of us being here. They're like, oh, it's a given. Like this belongs to me. This is my birthright. So then when she said that, it kind of opened my eyes to like how some white people do view themselves. They're like, oh, I deserve this. I was born to this. But we don't.
That kind of goes into like manifesting your destiny in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're told every single day and you're shown the sight every single day that whatever you want to get, you can get.
Right.
And all around you, people who look just like you are getting it just the way that they want. That just gives you that feeling that regardless of whatever's going to come out of it, you're definitely going to come out on top.
Right.
For us, it's just, look, man, you better work as hard as you can because these white people are already getting it. Their foot is already in the door.
We
And
got
you
to
got to
see
run.
ourselves
You
as we
Yeah.
deserve it.
right.
Right.
Like,
And what I want to say is I feel like more people should focus on semantics. More people should focus on what words mean and what we aim to accomplish when we say certain things. Like take take this perpetual struggle for equality. Um, with equality is basically like, hey, I'm just as human as you are, pretty much so.
Right.
And I think where we went wrong with that is through no fault of no one's really, because we didn't at the time have any means to sort of educate ourselves beyond what we were originally asking for without really knowing what we were asking for, without being too convoluted. But what I mean, getting to the point, we said, hey, I'm just as human as you are. But what we didn't do is we never bothered to question if this standard of equality that we were seeking, the standard that we were holding ourselves to, or this, what we wanted to be, we never stopped to ask if this standard was any good, if this was fair, if it was up to our standards of what we deem um, acceptable,
Right.
for lack of better words. Um, but yeah, we focus entirely too much on what they have, their placement in the world, rather than kind of realizing that not only do we deserve not only do we deserve to be there with them, shit, for all intents and purposes, we deserve to be in a higher playing field than they are, because historically, Black people have suffered in this country for it to be where it is now. Like, this entire country is built on the back of slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And
true.
I feel like until they're ready to accept that, or until we're ready to stop being so passive and do something about it, then we'll always kind of just be in a cycle of, picking which white man we like the most.
Right. So I have a question for you, Tez. Have you ever heard of a theory called double consciousness?
Elaborate.
So double consciousness is a theory by Du Bois, and it's basically like, as us as a Black man, we understand who we are
Mm,
to ourselves, and we also know how we
mm,
perpetuate ourselves onto other people. So we're constantly aware of how we may come across to other people and how we perceive ourselves to be, which is why we adapt to
mm.
certain scenarios. So if we're around a bunch of white people, in our minds, we're like, wow, I'm around white people. Let me try to be on my best behavior. Let me not try to act like too much like myself. Let me try to
Right.
conform to them, to like make them feel
Yeah, white
comfortable.
it up a little bit. Yeah, white it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, I've heard of that. But I don't particularly agree with. I'm not going to alter
Because it's
myself
subconsciously
as a
most of
Black
it.
man. Yeah, but I'm not going to alter I'm not going to willingly
Mm-hmm.
not like I'm not going to willingly alter myself in any way to accommodate the white supremacist narrative of what an acceptable Black man is supposed to act like, because it's such a fascinating thing, because as Black men, there's so much pressure to act a certain way, and this certain way at most times is completely unknown to us, because there have been situations that I've been in where it's just me in the neutral. But because of the neutral facial expression on my face, I've had to answer for it. I've had to sit and
Mm-hmm.
explain, it's just my face, because this quiet, brooding Black man is making, little Suzette over here uncomfortable. So, I do believe in double consciousness. Like, yeah, yes, that's very true. We have, even in terms of like how we speak, there's code switching, I believe they call it.
Yeah.
We have a means of communicating to where our people understand us and where they're made comfortable, and then we have a means of communicating to sort of retire in life. And it's kind of weird that it's like that, because think any other think any other English speaking country in Europe where the Scots, the Cockney British folk, they're allowed to have their own accent. They're allowed to have their own slang, their vernacular. But it's like, but for us as Black people, it's only how we talk that needs to constantly be validated and justified. It's only us that has to, you know, explain ourselves because we're always expected to do and act a certain way and talk a certain way.
Right.
But it's so twisted because you have one side that thinks this, you have Black people that think that, and you have white people that think that too. And what's fascinating to me is that in my experience, I feel like everyone has heard at some point in time, like, oh, you sound like a white boy. Oh, you talk white. But it just goes to show you the level. But you can't really be mad at anybody except, these schools, because the sad thing is they believe the enunciation of English, they consider this a white thing. They think it's exclusive to white people. But, in my experience, is like, if I'm talking to somebody else that looks like me, I might get the snide remark, oh, you sound white, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm speaking to a white person, guess what they say? What's your highest level of education? What does that tell you?
What I think it tells me is that school was only available to white people, first of all, because a lot of Black people, slaves, were not being educated. So they associate that with,
Man, right. But I've actually been asked, did I grow up around white people? And it's like, no. Like, do you think? Why do you believe that a white person is valuable to my imminent success in this damn country?
Right.
Like, why can't I just be different?
Right.
And I realize that what they're doing is projecting, and it's the ugliest kind of projecting, because when they say that, what they're pretty much letting you know is that they think white people are smarter than them.
Superior, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been called an Oreo.
And that's why I said, yeah, we need to be careful with the semantics and the words we use, because we don't really put much thought into what we're saying, or how it affects our reality and how we interact with people. Before I give the floor to someone else, you mentioned double consciousness, and it reminded me a lot of the Hegelian dialect. If you're not familiar with the Hegelian dialect, it was basically a theory that was brought up by G.W. Hegel, German philosopher, I think. But anyway, the basis of this theory is basically like, okay, in order for me to understand myself, I have to understand the world around me.
Okay.
And in order for me to understand the world around me, I have to understand myself, vice versa. So, we use the Hegelian dialect, regardless of if we're aware of it or not, because, I feel like in each social interaction, you're waiting for something to see in that other person that mirrors you, because it's a psychological fact that people like people who are like them, or mirror somebody they want to be like. And it even stretches to like people that other people like. It's all about the preconceived notions and perceptions of the individual that we're communicating with that differ a lot in our social interactions. But I think the ugly part about Hegel is that Hegel was the philosopher of the 16th century at the time whose works pretty much justified the European slave trade, because I'm not paraphrasing or quoting really, but he had said something along the lines of Africans being savages and having made no notable contribution to the world, which was a complete lie at the time. But they had to have a means to justify. They had to have a means to justify what they were doing to these people, and based on that, the self versus other type, the level of the Hegelian relatability type dig. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. That's a lot of information I
And I definitely appreciate you talking. I just want to remind you that we have 2 minutes left. And with those 2 minutes, I just want to thank you for joining us in this podcast. This is one of my favorite podcasts.
No, seriously.
Really
I know the people are waiting to hear you. There's a lot of people on Facebook who's like, yo, I wonder what he sounds like. Like, I wonder what he's really like behind. Now you guys know
today.
behind all the artistic poetry, this is a well-in-tune black man.
Very intelligent.
All right.
So I just want to say thank you for joining us today, and we hope to hear from you soon. Everyone who tuned in, I hope you learned something today, and you don't get offended. And if you're not black, stop saying the N-word, period. All right, thank you guys.